because there are many people sitting in this room who tried to do things and saw it wasn't working. And many of these problems have got worse in recent years, like small boats, and we are not the only country dealing with this. That is why Giorgia Meloni is going to the Council of Europe and saying something needs to change. But they're not asking to leave the ECHR either. And what I want us to do is something serious and proper. Just going on TV and making noise is not governing. And quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing politicians make promises that they don't know how to deliver. That is not my style. I am not going to tell anyone in this country that I'm doing something unless I know exactly how to do it. The Conservative Party needs to earn the trust of the public again. And earning trust starts by being honest, showing your homework, and doing it in a way that people have confidence in you, not just rushing out with a whole new agenda. They need to see that the party has changed. That is going to take time, and I'm going to use that time properly. Thank you. Jason Groves.
Kemi Badenoch there in Westminster announcing the launch of her party's review of the European Court of Human Rights and how it interplays with UK law. Some breaking news for you now. David Beckham is set to be awarded a knighthood in the King's Birthday Honours list. Let's cross to our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who can tell us more. Rob.
Yes, years of frustration it's been for David Beckham. He's waited so many years to be knighted. Sky News understands that next week, former England captain David Beckham will be knighted in the King's Birthday Honours list. Now, about a decade plus ago, there were some leaked emails from the Beckham camp which suggested he was frustrated about not receiving that knighthood at the time. There were questions over his tax affairs. So he's not received an honour since 2003 when he was awarded the OBE. That's at the time when he was at his height as a footballer, captaining England as he did for 5 years or more. Of course, he made 115 appearances for England, and beyond his football career for Manchester United, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain and AC Milan, he's been involved in UNICEF for many years and struck up a close friendship with King Charles, who was appointed an ambassador to the King's Foundation last year. They've been comparing countryside tips, talking about beekeeping even together, and invited to quite a few social occasions as well with both King Charles and Queen Camilla. It was last year that he was at a dinner at Highgrove, an Anglo-Italian dinner. He was also at the state dinner for the Emir of Qatar in the last year as well. So this is something that clearly David Beckham has been seen to be trying to secure perhaps for some time, to be becoming Sir David Beckham. And it's as well as honouring his football career, but his charity work as well. The fact he has been so prominent over the years for UNICEF in part of that charity work. Of course, since retiring from football in 2013, he's never gone into coaching, even really punditry. He's only done a bit of that. He has focused quite a bit on his work for charities in particular. But he really is a footballer who has transcended the game itself, perhaps to some the first real celebrity footballer with his marriage to Victoria Beckham at the height of the Spice Girls in the 1990s, performing at the heights for Manchester United, winning the Premier League, the Champions League, so much, and having that career, footballing-wise, where he's won titles in so many countries, in Spain, in Italy, and indeed in France at Paris Saint-Germain, playing in America as well for Los Angeles Galaxy, and now he's a part owner of a football team as well, part owning Inter Miami in Major League Soccer. So it has been quite an extensive career for David Beckham, where he's seen as contributing a lot to the country as a whole, an ambassador on the global stage, helped London win the Olympic bid for the 2012 Games when he went out with Tony Blair to Singapore in 2005 as well for that final lobbying with International Olympic Committee officials. So he has really been obviously such a key part of British public life now for over 3 decades, since his Manchester United debut in 1992, winning so many trophies. Now perhaps the biggest individual prize of them all, biggest individual honour of them all, is set to come to David Beckham next week, when we understand that the former England captain, who made 115 appearances for his country, will be honoured with a knighthood in the King's Birthday Honours.
Rob Harris in our Westminster newsroom, thank you so much. Let's take you to the Business Live team in the Sky newsroom and Darren McCaffrey.
Thank you very much indeed, Gareth. Yeah, very good morning to you. These are the top stories live from the Sky newsroom. The world's richest man versus the world's most powerful. The Musk-Trump bromance goes up in flames. Elon Musk brands Donald Trump's big beautiful bill as one for increasing spending and exacerbating the national debt. Plus, why premium drinks might be the answer to the problems making the alcohol industry reach for the bottle. Very good morning. This is Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. On this Friday, well, differences between Elon Musk and US President Donald Trump exploded into an all-out public feud last night. Mr. Musk called for Donald Trump's impeachment and insinuated he was withholding the release of files related to the disgraced New York financier Jeffrey Epstein. President Trump, in turn, proposed cutting off the billionaire's government contracts. Well, Tesla's share price surged in November after Trump won the US election. It reached its peak in December ahead of Trump's inauguration in January. But it has since plummeted since the start of the year and also since yesterday's spat, knocking 14% off in a single day. The decline in cash terms amounts to some 150 billion US dollars and brings down Mr. Musk's personal wealth by 34 billion. Well, our business and economics correspondent, Gurpreet Narwan, is in the studio with us. This has been, in many ways, the breakdown of this relationship much expected, and it seems to have finally happened.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different motivations and triggers involved with this feud, but you kind of have to sift through the insults to decipher exactly what they are. On one level, it's a disagreement about the bill and the impact that it's going to have on the American economy. Musk has challenged those chunky tax cuts, saying that it's only going to compound the US debt problem. And of course, fiscal watchdog in the US has said that it will add 2.4 trillion to US debt at a time when the bond market's already anxious about the state of debt in the US. Trump and his team, for his part, says, well, that this will boost economic growth, and that, of course, there's revenue to be gained from those tariffs as well, which will mitigate that impact. But then you look at the macroeconomic consequences of it, and while tariffs, they're not good for economic growth, and they're going to raise inflation. So that's the kind of economic arguments, on one hand, that they're rowing over. But then there's a layer beneath this, which is about self-interest. Now, Donald Trump has said that Elon Musk, who, as we know, left his role as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency last week, was acting up because among those tax cuts in that bill is the removal of tax credits for EVs, which will have an impact on Elon Musk and on Tesla. And he went further, saying that the government may actually remove some of the contracts for Tesla. And you can see the impact that that's had on the share price in that graph that you just showed us a second ago. Elon Musk was very dismissive about that. For his part, he threw the self-interest challenge back at Donald Trump, saying that actually the bill is full of pork, which basically means that it's full of spending in lawmakers' own constituencies. OK, Gurpreet, as always, thank you very much indeed. Let's bring in Sam Bright, who has been following this relationship pretty closely. Very good morning to you, Sam. What's your take on this? Was it inevitable?
Yeah, I think this is the implosion that the world was waiting to happen, to be honest. I mean, I think it's worth bearing in mind that neither Trump nor Musk, at the end of the day, are politicians. They're businessmen. And not only are they businessmen, they're both cut from the same cloth, so to speak. They're volatile. They're quite stubborn. I think their interests aligned during the election period. But as soon as Musk's tenure at Doge was up, it seemed as though this was only a matter of time, to be honest. And it will just be interesting to see whether it escalates or de-escalates in the coming days. I think it could go either way.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I think there was maybe an attempt to try and de-escalate things in the last kind of couple of hours, if you like. As you say, they are in some ways quite similar characters, but we must not also forget that Elon Musk is right in the sense that he had done a hell of a lot to help get Donald Trump elected and spent a lot of money doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to remind viewers, $300 million Elon Musk spent on getting Donald Trump elected. So he probably thinks that he deserves some payback from that. And by Trump cutting the subsidies for electric vehicles and for renewables more generally, I might add, it looks like Trump is doing the opposite and is in fact punishing Musk, despite Musk contributing so heavily to Trump's election victory. I think, though, this is the key thing. Trump has got what he wanted from Musk. He's been able to bank Musk's cash, win the election, and now it's Musk desperately asking Trump for favors, and Trump can very legitimately just shrug his shoulders at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think that Musk has a great deal of leverage here.
And just very, very quickly, Sam, and that's interesting, isn't it? Because in the end, Musk may well need Trump in the future. His businesses may well need Donald Trump in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know that Tesla and SpaceX are very reliant on government subsidies and contracts. So if this blows up in spectacular fashion, Tesla's share price in particular is going to slide even further. We've seen in the past few weeks that Musk has withdrawn from his role at Doge and has not even wanted to comment on US politics. So it does seem quite strange now that he's vocally criticizing the US president.
Okay. Sam, great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. That's Sam Bright there. Thank you. Now, the split between the world's richest and most powerful man originated from the president's big, beautiful tax bill, as he called it. Elon Musk has criticised that bill for prolific spending, while Donald Trump said that Musk's opposition was rooted in a provision that would scale back electric vehicle tax credits that had benefited Tesla. We'll speak to Cochin Yukovan, who is a senior economist at Aberdeen. Very good morning to you, as always. Just talk us through this bill, because that seems to be at the heart of the issue here. It is the sense that it is going to increase the US national debt quite significantly.
Yes, there are various estimates around this, and it really depends on what actually goes through in the end. So it's quite all-encompassing. There are tax cuts, there is spending, health, energy, and migration as well. So the key aspects of it is that the tax credit, the tax cuts from 2017 are going to be extended. Child tax credits are going to be included. Some exemptions on tax. All of this is expected to worsen the deficit by around 1.2% of GDP across the next 2 years. But then over the next decade, it could increase the federal budget deficit by between $2 to $3 trillion. So this is really impacting expectations in the market. There has recently, just a couple of weeks ago, a Moody's downgrade for the US government debt. So all of this together has led to some concern in the markets.
And what's interesting here, though, is, of course, Donald Trump's argument is that with the tariffs and with the growing US economy, which he reckons his economic policy will bring about, that in the end, actually, the tax intake will increase and thus the deficit will come down. That's kind of the Trump argument against those figures around debt, isn't it?
Well, it really depends on how much tariff revenue you actually bring in as a result of all this. So first of all, tariff negotiations are still ongoing. Second, there has been a court ruling against some of these measures, but the way he's implemented them, trying to bypass Congress. That's still being appealed at the moment. We don't know what the results of that yet. There may be more court challenges in the future. And furthermore, if you impose tariffs, there's a chance that you reduce the amount of imports, and therefore you reduce the potential revenue. So again, that revenue side is still unknown. And also, these things take time. So if you think about spending and investment in, fossil fuels, for example, how much is that actually going to increase GDP? These investments take a long time, and they're not necessarily going to be what we call a high multiplier in terms of boosting GDP. So there are a number of question marks there. Near term, there is a risk that because business investment and uncertainty has been hit quite hard, hiring decisions are on hold. Near term, this could be quite a downgrade to the US economic outlook. We're not expecting a recession, but you can't rule it out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and isn't that the interesting thing, is that when you look at some of the data emerging from the United States, things are going in the wrong direction.
It's true. The surveys in particular are really indicating quite a big downgrade in GDP growth in the coming quarters. That doesn't necessarily have to materialize, because obviously this is such a shock. The tariff announcements were such a shock. You can imagine that people have panicked initially, filled out surveys. But the key things to look at would be the labour market data. And some of the early signals for that have shown that there is some deterioration. Jobless claims or unemployment benefit claims, they've started to creep higher in May. The number of vacancies have declined. And then you also have, people who want to work. The number of people applying, looking for jobs have started to increase. It's getting harder to look for jobs. A number of different indicators are pointing in the wrong direction.
Okay.
And we have a big report out at noon today, which everyone's going to be watching, could move markets.
Okay, great stuff as always. Trade Coach Govindan from Aberdeen there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. Okay, well, let's have a look at how the markets are reacting to all of this. We can speak to Fiona Cincotta, who's a senior market analyst at City Index. Fiona, good morning to you. Just first of all, before we get on to the general markets, I mean, you look at what's happening with Tesla. I mean, it's quite incredible, the kind of collapse in share price and, of course, in Elon Musk's own personal wealth.
Yes, completely. I mean, the reaction that we saw in the Tesla share price yesterday was very acute. We saw that 15% decline, very much a knee-jerk reaction, I'd like to say. We saw 150 billion wiped off the value of that company. But I think a lot of that is a knee-jerk reaction. We're seeing Tesla actually trading up around 5% pre-market today, in a sense that was overdone yesterday. But obviously there are concerns over what might happen as far as Tesla is concerned, if there is an unfavourable relationship with Trump. Obviously, Musk is looking for relaxed or easy regulation when he sort of puts out the self-driving, which he's hoping to expand. So, there are areas that Trump could make life pretty difficult for Tesla, should he choose to. And I think that is what's just weighing on the share price as well.
And Fiona, what's fascinating here is it's not, let's be honest about this, some Republicans or indeed Elon Musk who've been concerned about this tax bill in the United States. The markets, the bond markets have been too, haven't they? And we've seen quite a strong reaction from them over the last couple of weeks.
Yes, completely. I mean, there's been a lot of concern as far as what sort of unfunded tax cuts might mean for the US bond market and for US lending and borrowing, because as we sort of pointed out previously, Moody's also downwardly revised the US credit rating from its perfect to just down one notch, which is again just highlighting those concerns that there are over what the outlook for the US economy, the outlook over its spending plans, and what that would mean as far as tax ingression is concerned as well.
And Fiona, what's been the impact in terms of the markets? I mean, we know, for example, in currencies, it's pretty clear the dollar has weakened, hasn't it? The markets seem to be taking this a bit more in their stride. I mean, there is a sense that they're really grappling with a continuous uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, there is very much a soap opera, it feels, going on as far as Trump is concerned. And I think right at the very beginning, the markets were very, very sensitive to sort of Trump's comments and everything that Trump was saying and doing. And obviously those trade tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs that were announced in April. Since then, there has been sort of a slightly numbing, I would say, of the market. Obviously, there are still noticeable reactions for particular shares like we saw with Tesla. But overall, the market yesterday was just slightly down around 0.5%. But the S&P 500 has recovered a lot of the losses that it had made initially. But I think it's also worth pointing out that we could see struggles in US assets pushing higher. The US dollar could remain under pressure, especially if we see now that data coming through maybe starting to show the impact of Trump's trade tariff turmoil actually in hard data. So we've talked about potential GDP downgrades and also weaker job unemployment.
Fiona, great stuff as always. Appreciate your time this morning. That's Fiona Cincotta there from City Index. Thank you. Don't forget, you can scan the QR code on your screen right now to access the Money blog on the Sky News app. Just get your phone up there and screen that one if you want to. And you can also subscribe now to our new financial newsletter that starts today. Again, you've got the QR code on your screen right now. Do sign up to our Money newsletter by literally scanning that code, and you'll get the newsletter into your inbox as of today. OK, you're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, talk about the drinks industry and how premium drinks might be the answer to the problems making the alcohol industry reach for the bottle. That's up next. Stay tuned.
Show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right, i.e. fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
1,500 movies. I don't want this flight to end. Fly better. Thank you.
Now, the alcohol sector is facing headwinds of public health campaigns, taxes and changing consumer preferences. However, premium drinks do appear to be bucking a trend in the industry, according to upmarket cider producers. One of those producers is in Somerset and seen sales increase by 51% this year while bagging supply contracts with several five-star hotels. So how can alcohol producers survive a cultural shift away from booze? Delighted to say we can go live to Somerset and speak to Nick Showering, who is director at Showering's Cider. Nick, good morning to you. I suppose the first question here is, cider is one of these drinks, at least from what I can see, that does ebb and flow a little bit. Sometimes it's quite fashionable, sometimes a little less so. What do you think has changed this year to see such a large increase in sales?
Well, I think what we're seeing in the cider industry is this premiumization trend. People are being squeezed a little bit. They're very conscious of where they're spending their money. And I think we're seeing people are happy to spend that little bit more on less frequent buying occasions, but for quality, heritage, and that little bit better product. So we're very lucky and we're benefiting quite well from that.
And how do you make premium cider? What's the difference? What does it involve?
Well, you'd be surprised to know that cider in the UK technically could only have 30% apple juice. and the rest can come from fermented granulated sugar. So a real proper made cider will always be 100% apple juice, and it will always be fresh rather than concentrate. So that's just one little difference you can always keep an eye out for.
It's like kind of meat in a sausage, if you like, Nick. In saying that, I think it's also fair to say, and we touched upon it in the introduction there, about the pressure the alcohol industry is under at the moment. I mean, the World Health Organization has now said there is no safe level of drinking. How concerned are you about that? And indeed about the fact that it seems that young people are drinking less than they've done in the past?
Well, the young generation coming through are definitely drinking less. And I think it's a combination of health-based decisions, but also I think it's that financial struggle. A night out these days, if you're going to have a few drinks, bit of food and travel home, it's out of people's budget. So I think that's causing a trend, and it's almost cyclical, where once you're missing a night out and you're losing the desire for it, it tumbles. So I think what the World Health Organization is saying about how alcohol obviously is not good for the health, I think, we've always sort of known that, but it'd be our side of showerings is really that fine treat. We're encouraging drinking in moderation with food, one glass an evening, as a bit of a treat.
Yeah, indeed. But there is talk, isn't there? The government may certain governments in Europe are looking at putting labelling, like tobacco-style labelling on alcohol bottles. There is a sense, isn't there, that there is a kind of a government intervention in the alcohol market.
True, but then we have to look slightly wider at the whole hospitality industry as general, because the hospitality industry is such a key driver for a lot of the economy, really. And so to squeeze even harder on a struggling sector, it'd be a shame to see. But I do understand the requirements of warnings and letting people know. But from our side, we'd like people to enjoy cider and alcohol in moderation as a treat.
OK, Nick, great stuff. And it looks glorious there in front of that orchard down in Somerset. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. That's Nick showering there and his cider. OK, well, that's it for the moment here on Business Live. Of course, we're back at 4:30 this afternoon with the rest of the business news, including more on that big spat between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. That bromance has very much imploded, hasn't it? Coming up next on Sky News, the rest of the main news, including that breaking news in the last hour that David Beckham is going to get a knighthood from King Charles. Stay tuned for that. That's coming up at midday, and I'll see you later on at 4:30. Have a very good afternoon. Goodbye.
This is Sky News Today. It's 12 o'clock. The headlines this hour. Sky News confirms David Beckham will receive a knighthood in the King's Birthday Honours list. Russia's defence ministry says its forces carried out a massive strike on targets in Ukraine in response to attacks on Russia. Comes as Russia's ambassador tells Sky News that the UK was directly involved in Ukrainian strikes against his country last week.
I don't believe that